It began, as most nightmares do, with a simple dare, a challenge whispered in the dark, fueled by bravado and the promise of easy money. My friends, their faces illuminated by the flickering glow of a phone screen, dared me to spend a single night. Just one night inside the infamous Victorian mansion on the edge of Marrow Creek. $200. That was the price for my courage, or perhaps my foolishness. A sum that seemed impossibly large to a kid like me, enough to silence the gnawing doubt in my gut. The house stood silhouetted against the bruised twilight sky, a skeletal monument to forgotten horrors. Local legend painted a grim picture of the place. They said the house bled, not just a trickle, but a torrent from its very walls every single night. A macabre phenomenon that began precisely at 12:03 a.m. and ceased only with the first hint of dawn at 3 a.m. The bleeding, they claimed, was triggered by light. Any light brought within its cursed confines would awaken the crimson tide, a chilling detail that made my flashlight feel less like a tool and more like a fuse. I clutched my meager arsenal, a heavy-duty flashlight, its beam a fragile shield against the encroaching darkness. A hunting knife, cold and reassuring in my palm, though I knew it was useless against whatever truly haunted this place, and a rosary, a gift from my grandmother, its wooden beads worn smooth by countless prayers. The front door groaned open, a sound like a dying breath, inviting me into the maw of the beast. The air inside was thick, stagnant, tasting of dust and decay and something else, something metallic and ancient. I stepped across the threshold, the door swinging shut behind me with a soft, deliberate click. The dare was accepted. The descent had begun. The silence inside was a living thing, pressing in on me, amplifying the frantic beat of my own heart. I checked my watch, the luminous hands glowing faintly in the oppressive gloom. 12:02 a.m. The air grew heavy, charged with an unseen energy. Then the world shifted. Precisely at 12:03 a.m., the house lived up to its gruesome reputation. A low, guttural groan vibrated through the floorboards, rising from the very foundations. Then a sickening squelch, followed by a wet, viscous sound. From the cracks in the plaster, from beneath the peeling wallpaper, from the very seams of the house, blood began to gush. Not a slow seep, but a torrent, thick and dark, painting the walls in grotesque, shifting patterns. The metallic tang of it filled my nostrils, overwhelming every other scent. A sudden, violent gust of wind, though no window was open, slammed the front door shut with a deafening boom. The sound echoed through the cavernous halls, a final definitive seal on my fate. The house had swallowed me whole. My flashlight, my only beacon in the encroaching madness, flickered once, twice, then died, plunging me into an absolute, suffocating darkness. The blood continued to flow, a chilling symphony of wet sloshing and dripping. Then came the whispers, soft at first, like dry leaves skittering across a forgotten grave, then growing in intensity, swirling around me, indecipherable yet undeniably malicious. They seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The whispers escalated into screams. Not human screams, but something far more primal, more agonizing, tearing through the fabric of the night. They echoed from the upper floors, from the depths of the basement, a chorus of pure, unadulterated terror. And then the laughter. A child's laughter, high-pitched and innocent, yet laced with an unspeakable malice. It was the most terrifying sound of all, confirming what my instincts already screamed. I was not alone. A malevolent presence, ancient and hungry, had awakened. Panic clawed at my throat, but a primal instinct for survival propelled me forward. I stumbled through the absolute darkness, my hands outstretched, slick with the house's bleeding walls. Every step was a gamble, every breath a struggle against the suffocating dread. I needed to find a way out. My desperate search for an escape route led me deeper into the mansion's horrific embrace. I pushed open a door, the hinges groaning in protest, and was met by a scene that curdled my blood. The room was filled with dolls, hundreds of them, their porcelain faces cracked and vacant. Each doll was bleeding. Not from a wound, but from their eyes, their mouths, their tiny, stitched seams. Crimson tears streamed down their painted cheeks, pooling on the dusty floorboards, reflecting the unseen horrors that surrounded me. Their vacant stares seemed to follow my every move. I backed away, my stomach churning, and stumbled into what must have been a nursery. The air here was colder, heavier, thick with a cloying sweetness that made my head spin. In the center of the room, a crib stood, rocking gently, rhythmically, on its own. There was no child within it, no visible force to propel its macabre dance, just the rhythmic creak of wood, a lullaby for the damned. The rocking grew more frantic, as if an invisible infant thrashed within its confines, desperate to escape. Further down the hall, I found a bedroom. The bed, a grand four-poster, was draped with pristine white sheets. But the sheets were not still. They writhed subtly at first, then with increasing vigor, as if an unseen, monstrous form struggled beneath them. There was no body, no discernible shape, just the unsettling undulation of fabric. It was as if the very essence of life, or perhaps unlife, pulsed beneath the surface, trapped and struggling. The house was not just bleeding, it was alive, and it was suffering. My fingers, slick with blood and grime, brushed against something hard and brittle on a dusty nightstand. A journal. Its leather cover was cracked, its pages brittle with age, but the ink within was startlingly clear. I held it close, straining to read in the oppressive darkness, my mind reeling. The journal detailed the house's dark history, a chronicle of unspeakable acts. It spoke of ancient forgotten rituals, of ground consecrated not by prayer, but by sacrifice. This house, it revealed, was built upon a foundation of blood and bone. It was not merely a dwelling, but a vessel, a conduit for something ancient, something malevolent, a dark entity that had slumbered beneath the earth for centuries. The house was its anchor, its gateway to our world. A family, the original inhabitants, had attempted to summon this entity, not to banish it, but to harness its power. Their ritual, a grotesque perversion of faith, involved offering their own child, a pure, innocent soul, as a sacrifice. The ritual had failed. The entity had not been controlled, but unleashed. It remained trapped within the house, forever bound to its walls, demanding blood nightly. The bleeding was its hunger, its insatiable thirst for life. As I absorbed this horrifying truth, a chill that had nothing to do with the cold seeped into my bones. I was not alone. The house had its family. A figure materialized in the doorway, tall and gaunt. A man, faceless, his limbs contorted, crucified on the ceiling, his shadow stretching long and distorted across the blood-soaked floor. In another room, a woman. Her eyes were hollow, her movements jerky and unnatural. She sat at a table, a rusty saw clutched in her hand, methodically sawing off her own fingers, one by one, without a sound. The sickening crunch of bone on metal echoed in the silence. Then, a small voice, barely a whisper, came from behind me. I spun around, my heart leaping into my throat. A little girl, her eyes wide and black, stood there. Her dress was stained with crimson, her hair matted. She raised a tiny, blood-soaked hand and pointed. "It's hungry," she breathed, her voice like dry leaves skittering across stone. "It always wants more." The little girl's warning, Her chilling gaze spurred me into a desperate, frantic attempt to escape. I ran, blindly, through the labyrinthine corridors, the whispers and screams growing louder, the child's laughter echoing behind me. My foot caught on something unseen, and I plunged downward. I landed hard, the impact jarring every bone in my body, in a cold, damp space. The basement. The air here was even thicker, heavy with the stench of decay. And something else. Something indescribably foul. My hand, still clutching the rosary, instinctively reached out. My fingers brushed against something cold and stiff. A body. My heart seized in my chest. I fumbled for my dead flashlight, shaking it violently, praying for a flicker of light. A faint glow, just enough to reveal the horror before me. It was Jason, my brother. His eyes were wide, vacant, staring up at the unseen ceiling. His body was mutilated, twisted into an impossible shape, his limbs torn, his chest ripped open. He had been here. He had been a victim. A low growl rumbled from the deepest shadows, a sound that vibrated through my very bones. The air grew impossibly cold, then searingly hot. Two burning eyes, like embers in the abyss, opened in the darkness. A monstrous entity began to coalesce from the shadows. Horns, sharp and black, spiraled from its head. Its skin was like cracked earth, its form impossibly vast. It towered over Jason's broken body, its burning eyes fixed on me. Its voice, a guttural rasp that seemed to tear the very air, filled the basement. "You survived," it hissed, a cruel, knowing smile stretching its grotesque mouth. "You are strong. You will bring me more. You will be my lure." The next thing I knew, I was outside. The first rays of dawn, weak and hesitant, painted the sky in hues of bruised purple and gray. I lay sprawled on the overgrown lawn, covered in dried blood, my body aching, my mind a chaotic storm of fragmented horrors. It was 3 a.m. The bleeding had stopped. I was alive, unharmed, physically, save for the scrapes and bruises from my fall. But something was missing. My hand instinctively went to my neck. The rosary. It was gone, vanished, as if it had never been there, swallowed by the house. My fingers brushed against something in my pocket. Jason's phone. How it got there, I couldn't say. My hands trembled as I pulled it out. The screen cracked, but still functional. I scrolled through his messages, my blood running cold. There were texts, to our friends, to acquaintances, invitations. "Come to the house tonight. It's a party. You won't believe what's inside." My name was attached to some of them, sent from his phone, but with my voice, my phrasing. A horrifying realization dawned on me, colder than any fear I had felt inside the house. I had survived, yes, but I was not free. I was a pawn. The entity had not killed me. It had claimed me. I was destined to bring more victims to the bleeding house, to lure them with false promises, with the same dare that had ensnared me. My survival was not a miracle, but a curse. The house stood silent now, its windows like vacant eyes, watching me. Its terrifying legacy would continue, fueled by my unwilling hand. I was its messenger, its unwitting accomplice, forever bound to its insatiable hunger. And the nightmare, for me, had only just begun.